Hey guys, this video is going to focus on how to square a binomial. So squaring a binomial typically looks like one of these examples here, typically made up of a binomial that is squared. So essentially you have the same binomial times the same binomial, and it's just compressed into this one multiplication right over here. So looking at the first example, w minus 9 squared, this essentially means we're going to take w minus 9 times w minus 9. That's what squaring it means. You're taking the base and you're multiplying it to itself. Now, a way to square a binomial is to use the following formulas that we do have here. Now these formulas, if memorized, are supposed to give a quicker way in order to do this multiplication. So we're going to use these formulas in order to multiply two of these examples, and then we'll use a different method to multiply the third one here. So the way that these formulas work, so there's two different variations just depending on is the sign in between your two terms here positive or negative. Depending if it's positive or negative is going to determine which one of these formulas you're going to use. Now essentially the formulas are going to be the same. If you noticed, you have a squared, 2ab, b squared, b squared. The only difference is the sign change on the middle term. So depending on what sign you have, that's going to determine which one of these you have. So if we're taking a look at example A, we do have the minus sign in the middle of the two terms. So that does mean that we are going to use this top formula right over here. And the way that this works, so we're going to start by squaring the first term. So we take a squared. Keep in mind that a is that first term, b is that second term. So we're going to take our first term, which is w, and square it. W times w is w squared. Then we're going to have a minus sign, and we're going to take a times b, and we're going to double it, is what this says. So take your a and your b, your w times your 9, or 9 times w is another way to look at it. So if we take 9 times w, that is 9w. And if we double this, or multiply it by 2, we get 18w. Then we're going to square the second term, our b term here. So our b term here is a 9, and if we square 9, 9 times 9 is 81. And there we go. That is our solution. There's no simplifying, nothing left to do as long as we follow this formula here. So a somewhat quick way to sit there and get to your solution. So let's look at this again. Taking a look at the middle example here, we have a plus sign in between, so that does mean that we're going to use the bottom formula here because it's positive. Otherwise, we start by squaring the first term, 9m times 9m. Well, 9 times 9 is 81, and m times m is m squared. So if we take our a times our b, so 9m times 1 is 9m, multiply it by 2. So if we have 2 of these, that means we have 18m. Otherwise, to wrap it up, all we have to do is double our last term here. So 1 times 1 is a 1. And that wraps up that one there. Now, I always say if you don't have to multiply a formula, why do so? There's so many formulas in math, and having to memorize more and more formulas can sometimes just really crowd your head and become a little bit difficult to figure out what formula do you need to use with which particular problem. Now, another way that you could look at these examples without using the formula is just remember that this binomial squared, you're taking the same binomial times the same binomial. So for example C here, I would be doing 10x minus 7y times 10x minus 7y. That's the multiplication that is going on. So I can go ahead and expand the multiplication and either use the distributive property or use the FOIL method in order to multiply it. I'm going to use the FOIL method, which says first times first. 10 times 10 is 100. X times x is x squared. Then you multiply the outside. 10x times 7y. 10 times negative 7 is a negative 70. X times y is x times y. Multiplying the two middle terms there, negative 7y times 10x, well that's going to give us another negative 7xy. And multiplying last times last gives us a 49y squared. Combine your two middle terms and you're done. So drop down the 100x squared minus 140xy plus 49y squared. So it's just a different way to multiply a binomial without having to memorize the formulas. Just remembering that this is still a multiplication, so we can still use FOIL, we can still use distributive properties. So I recommend doing so, especially if you blank out on a test or anything like that and can't remember the formulas. You can always revert back to that technique. Otherwise, that is it for this video.